Forgot how to do all this. Oh my gosh, did I write any of the books? You guys, it's been a second, I'm sorry. Hi there, my name's Amanda, and once upon a time, I used to make booktube videos. So it's been a second since I've made some videos, and I apologize for that. Not that I ever feel like anybody should have to like apologize, especially if they take a break or whatever, or have to explain it. But I am gonna just explain it a little bit. Not that there are that many of you, but thank you to everyone who stayed. And sometimes I get new followers and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I haven't even made a video in so long. But anyway, I'm just gonna say really quickly like what was going on. It kind of started as I just needed a little bit of a break because I would sometimes like I started to like give in to the pressures a little bit of booktube, you know, when people are like, oh, your videos have to be like this and they have to be like that and you have to have this type of videos. And even though I never felt that way while watching somebody's videos, I just kind of gave into the pressure a little bit and just needed a break. And that's how it started, even though like I don't think that anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I got over that pretty quickly. But also, you know, in these last few years, just a lot of things have happened. I lost several loved ones in the span of like 4 months, and then a couple others within this time. So I just needed a little bit of space for that and a little bit of time. My living situation has changed a few times, not just where I live, but the people around me and if I could film and things like that. And then I'm actually moving again on Sunday, so this will be new again. My job situation was also different. I've always worked a lot and I was working a lot and it was just hard for me to balance. And then I started an accelerated second bachelor's program, which I'm currently in now. I'm done in November. So right now I'm actually working 2 jobs and I'm still in this program, which is very intense, and it like went right through the summer and stuff. And then with COVID and everything happening, it was made more intense and more accelerated, and they just like piled on work. So it's been really difficult in that sense, but right now I'm still in the program. I'm almost done and I'm doing like an internship that's 2 hours away, which I love, but like that's a lot more time on top of my 2 jobs and stuff. So that's why, you know, I just haven't really made any videos. I've actually filmed this video like several times, but then going back and editing it, I always was like, whatever. And that's happened a couple of times, like especially in this last year. I actually, like a year and a half ago, I made my own book tag that I still have. I like carry around my little note card and I was so proud of it. Like I did my research. I hope nobody's done it. You know, I don't know like if they would have the exact same questions, because there were a couple of videos that I saw that were kind of the same, but not really, like not really at all. But I'll like double check again obviously before I film it. But I'm really excited about that. And I actually had tried to film it before, but especially like once I film it and you see it, the nature of the video, it wasn't good. So like sometimes when I go back and edit, I'm like, no, I'm not posting that. So that's what happened with this video also. But this one I promise is going up no matter what. I don't care that this camera sometimes makes me look weird. Like, is that me? I don't know. I guess. I swear that's not what I feel like I look like, but whatever. Another big thing that happened was that my relationship ended after 7.5 years, and that was a big deal, and it took a little bit of time for me to heal and that's all. But you know, and there's some other little things, but you know, that's the general gist. All I'm like really comfortable sharing. So but of course I have been reading and watching stuff. I've watched a lot more than reading, and I've been reading much more lately because my program is much more balanced now. So I'm not gonna share all the things that I've watched because that's a lot. Maybe I'll do a separate video, but I will talk about the things that I've read. This might not cover all the things that I read because sometimes it's really hard and I like completely forget. And like I was trying to organize my Goodreads, but that is just a mess. Like I love Goodreads, but my goodness. So I'm just gonna go through the books that I remember that I've read. They're in no particular order. Also, just for reference, I read a lot of different kinds of books. I read a variety of books relating to a lot of different things. So we're just gonna talk about them. That's it, okay? Okay, all right, let's do it. Okay, so the first book that I'm gonna talk about, which I don't actually remember if I talked about before I stopped like filming videos. I don't remember, but it was called Neverworld Weight by Marisha Pessl. This book, I would give like a C. I don't remember it all that well. I do remember being very excited by the premise. The whole idea of it is that there was this group of kids that were in this car accident, and there's like, they share the secret about somebody who like passed away a year prior, and they like, well, some of them share the secret, but like anyway, they're in an accident or something and they're stuck in what's called like the Neverworld. And it's like the whole premise is that they are all stuck here and they can't move on and they can't go back until they decide who gets to move on. So one of them gets to survive, otherwise they're reliving the day over and over and over again. But one of them gets to survive and they have to vote on who it was. And I thought it was such a cool premise, and there were so many really cool things that could have been done with it. But I don't know, it didn't it didn't work for me. I don't think there were some of the things I just didn't like the way they were done. There were also some things that inconsistencies like this sometimes don't really bother me, but for some reason it did in this. Especially this one part where there's like this one character that's supposed to be incredibly intelligent, right? So knows everything. And she made a comment about another character, you know, that they must be schizophrenic because their mood changes so quickly or something like that, or bipolar because their mood changes so quickly. And I'm like, oh, that's not an accurate representation of that mental health condition. So honestly, it's not a minor thing. A lot of people confuse like schizophrenia with like a dissociative identity disorder and things like that. And I just think it's kind of important, especially if your character supposedly knows everything. I feel like that was an important thing. Like, you know what I mean? But also there was like some things that happened in the end. I just like the twists and stuff I wasn't super into it. Not bad, interesting premise. Honestly, like if there was another book that was like this, I would definitely read it because I think it's really cool. But anyway, moving on. Okay, another book that I read that I actually listened to, because I love listening to books that are read by authors, specifically like by that author. I think it's so fun, is Undeniable by Bill Nye. This book was so good, you guys. First of all, Bill Nye's writing is incredible, but on top of that, like he just makes it really accessible and like packs in so much information, and I love it. And it's also just really entertaining to read. It was really good. The next book that I have here is Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. This was incredible. This book made me literally like laugh out loud. But I thought it was so good. It was funny. It was interesting. I learned a lot. Oh my gosh, that reminds me of another book that I read. Oops, sorry. It was really, really good. I highly recommend this, especially if you're a fan of Tina Fey and like Amy Poehler and comedy in general. I really am. I love it. So I thought it was really good. It was really interesting to see her getting into comedy. It was interesting to see her life, her background. I learned a lot about Tina Fey, and I love Tina Fey. So it was really good. Okay, what that reminded me of is that I also read Born Standing Up by Steve Martin. This book was so good. It's like short and small. I read it on ebook. It's really good and it's really sweet and funny. I don't know, it was really cool to see Steve Martin, who's like a legend of comedy, right? It was really cool to see him like talk about his life and where he got his start and like working at like Disneyland when it first opened. Like I think that's so cool. I don't know, it was really interesting. It was kind of funny, you know, it was mostly just like informative, but it was really good, especially if you're into comedy and stand-up. Okay, the next book that I read, Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. You guys, this was so good. Okay, I love Game of Thrones. Love Game of Thrones. Okay, Khaleesi is my girl. I don't want to talk about it. She's my girl. I don't care. But I finally got around to reading this. I actually read it a little while ago, but it was funny because this is actually my friend's book, and he said to me, like, I saw him reading the third one. I was like, oh my gosh, you're reading Game of Thrones? He's like, yes. I was like, I've been waiting for George R.R. Martin to finish the series because I feel like I'm just gonna eat it all up. And he's like, I used to say that too, and then I told myself, and then I realized that if I waited for him to come out with the books, I was never gonna read it. And then he's like, here, do you wanna just borrow it? And I was like, yes. So good, you guys, so deep, so much more intricate. You know, the first season is done fairly accurately to the book, except there are some weird changes that I don't understand. Like some character changes that I'm like the creative decisions they made, I'm like, why did you decide that? Like some of the worst scenes in the show for me are the most like, ugh. I'm like, it didn't happen the same way in the book, and I'm like, why did you make that change? Like that's a very weird and deliberate change that you made, you know? Anyway, the book was really good. Definitely give this an A. It was super intricate. It was super fun to read, heart-wrenching. I cried. I loved it, and I can't wait to read the next one. Okay, and the next book that I read is called Our Revolution by Bernie Sanders. I actually listened to this on Audible because, like I said, I like to hear things read by the authors because I love people reading to me. I think it's fun. And it's read by Bernie Sanders and Mark Ruffalo, which is like so exciting. So it was really good. It was incredibly informative. You learn a lot, obviously, about Bernie Sanders. You learn a lot about policy. You learn a lot about his start and what he's been working for his entire career. It was incredible. It was very inspiring. Talks about a lot of really important things, and I loved it. I just realized I haven't been giving these books ratings. I will put the rating when I edit it. This got an A+. Okay, the next book that I read is called Chalkman by CJ Tudor. This book was really interesting for me to read because I never read anything like it, and I liked it, but I kind of expected more, which I know isn't really fair. I will say it gets like a B-, C+ for me. I didn't love the ending, and there were some things that I didn't love, but it was mostly entertaining. It was quick to get through. Okay, the next book that I read is I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. This book was really good. I listened to this on Audible too. This book was absolutely incredible, very informative, super important to read. Austin Channing Brown is a black woman whose parents named her Austin because it's a white male name typically, and they wanted to give her the best advantages they could in their life. And that fact alone is pretty terrible to think about, but then she talks a lot about her family, her upbringing, her, growing up as somebody that was like surrounded by white people but was black, and her like the way that she saw blackness in herself, and her coming into her blackness. Who am I to sit here and judge this book? I think it's an important read and an important story for people to consume, especially if that's not something that you identify with, but also obviously I can't speak for people who do. Okay, the next book that I read, sorry, but it's good. It's called A Day in the Life of Marlo Bundo. It's written by Marlon Bundo and Jill Twiss, and it's illustrated by E.C. Keller, or E.G. Keller, I'm sorry, I apologize. Presented by John Oliver, who does Last Week Tonight. This is an incredible story. It was written for a very specific reason, and purchasing it, the proceeds went to supporting LGBTQIA youth. So I bought it for that reason, and it's like this beautiful story about this bunny who falls in love with another bunny. It's incredible. I highly recommend it, especially for children. I definitely recommend this like for kids, especially if you're teaching about like inclusivity and love and things like that, but even just in general, because that should just be something that just happens, you know what I mean? This is a really good book. It's really sweet. I don't know. It was good. You could read it in like 5 seconds. And I'm a very slow reader. The next book that I read that I'm so excited about is Misery by Stephen King. Not only did I read Misery by Stephen King, I also drove almost 5 hours to Bangor, Maine, where he's from, and I think he still lives there, I'm not sure, to do like a self-directed Stephen King tour. Like I went to the pet cemetery, I went to like this water tower or something where he like, that's in it, and I think he like, the whole thing was that he wrote most of it on the, like the book, on the bench near the water tower. And I saw like, I don't know, did I say the pet cemetery? Yeah. I saw the Ted Bundy statue. That's like, no, Paul Bunyan. I always do that. The Paul Bunyan statue that was like in it, like it's a big deal. It was incredible. It was so much fun. I love Stephen King. I think he's such a brilliant mind and writer and so interesting. But this was incredible. I didn't grade Marlon Bundo. Whatever. This book definitely gets an A for me. I think this book was fascinating. Not just, obviously like you have to separate like the author from the book sometimes, but this was just a really good book. It's 99% of the book is 2 characters, mostly. It's like 2 characters, and it's still riveting and interesting and terrifying. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend reading this. Misery is one of my favorite Stephen King movies, and reading the book just made it that much better. It's so much more cruel though. It's interesting to read stuff from Stephen King's after watching it for so long. It's just so much more brutal, so fair warning on that. Okay, the next thing that I read, literally I read in 45 minutes. It was one day, actually, because I listened to it on Audible. And that is We Should All Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is an incredible book. It's like a short, it's like an essay, essentially. Really, really good. I don't know why I didn't read it before, because it was definitely something that was recommended, when I was like first starting college and first like reading more culturally relevant and, progression stuff. So I don't know why I hadn't read it before, because it was so fast, it was so good, and when she reads it, I love it. If you guys don't know, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, she's like got really popular for a lot of her works like this, talking about discrimination and things like that. But also she does this TED Talk called The Power of a Single Story. Highly recommend. One of my favorite TED Talks ever. It's so good. She's just incredible, and it's just, you should. It's so good. I do wish it was like a little bit more inclusive in some aspects, but again, like the purpose of this was like touching on this one topic, though you can't really separate them all, you know what I mean? But it was a very specific focus, so I do understand why it was like that, but still. Okay, the next thing that I read a lot of like nonfiction and stuff, probably just because like I was in school and I knew I wouldn't have time to really dive into a world, you know what I mean? Was Educated by Tara Westover. This was incredible, you guys. Definitely an A+. This was one of the best nonfiction biography books that I've ever read in my entire life. Like, it read like fiction, but was painful like real life, because it was real life, this is her life. It was incredible though, the way that she wrote it, it like went so quickly, and I swear like things would happen, and I was like, there's no way more things happened to her. And then something else would happen, and I'm like, girl, you okay? I'm so sorry. And my friend like lives near where it takes place, and I'm like, girl. Anyway, so good, highly recommend. Is my battery really gonna die? This is so annoying. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, and the last thing that I actually finished recently that I can remember is called Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I know I'm super late to this. I'm only reading this because my friend told me that I need to read it before I read another series. Actually really good. I can see why the controversy. It's not like super wonderful, but it's interesting. It's really good. I would give it like a B+, A-. Like I really enjoyed reading it. I see the problems in it. You know, I recognize that, and I'm here for that. I'm here to talk about that, but like I was entertained. It was like really interesting. Okay, and before my camera dies, let's talk about what I'm currently reading right now. I'm reading Siege and Storm, by Leigh Bardugo, which is the second book in the Shadow and Bone, the Grisho verse or whatever. So far, really enjoying it. Not too far into it. I'm gonna get through it a little bit more. I am rereading White Fragility. I've read this before by Robin DiAngelo. I've read this before for a class, and also the new Jim Crow, which is up there, which I'm probably gonna reread again. I'm rereading this because a few friends of mine would like to know more about, racism and race and white privilege and things like that. So they asked me if I would help and if I would read a book with them. So we're gonna read this and talk about it and stuff. And I'm also reading Bill Nye's new book called Everything All at Once. You guys, it's like really bad. Like I just like want to highlight everything. Like I know you can't see, but anyway, it's just so good. The way that he writes is hilarious, and again, very accessible, but also he's just like, they're just facts. Like, you know, it's just facts. He's just sharing information that he has in knowledge. It's straight up facts. So good. I'm loving it. I'll let you guys know how it goes. Anyway, okay, that's all I have, I guess. This is interesting. I'm happy to be back to making videos. Sorry for my absence. I also want to do other fun stuff. Like, I like to travel, and I'm about to graduate. You know, I know a lot of things about school. This is my second bachelor's degree, so totally with it. But I would like to do some other stuff with this too, mostly books and stories and movies and things that I love, really. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you soon. I hope you have a wonderful day, night, weekend, whatever. And thank you. Definitely forgot something. All right. Anyway, I appreciate you. Do I even know how to turn it off? How do I even turn it off?